Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on mysterious and weird true stories, from glitches to the paranormal. This is my weekly compendium, ending on Monday, October 11th, 2021. Case file number 323, written by Another Lost Human, Deja Vu, or a Time Loop. Okay, so I felt for a while like something was off, that I couldn't really progress through time the same way a normal person can. It would happen that I'd have this déjà vu that was much more than just a feeling. I was literally able to predict what was about to happen while it was happening. I was also able to remember seeing the same events from multiple locations or through different ways of interacting with my environment. For a while, this was really innocuous, like I was just laying in bed so I didn't think anything of it, although I thought it was strange and remembered it later on. Last week, I moved into my dorm room and met my roommates. I'm a college freshman. I always thought they acted a bit strange or were more uncanny in the way they acted, but I always attributed it to some kind of anticipation due to stress and everything being new. But it always felt like they were planning or acting out their actions, like it was part of a script. However, yesterday, my roommates and I had the exact same conversation twice, once in the morning and once in the evening. Her hair was wet, and she gave me the same response dyeing it. You wouldn't dye and wash your hair twice in one day, would you? There were multiple moments where, in the morning, I had been embodying her body and had to make up a response that sounded like her. Of course, these responses didn't make sense, and I knew when she was about to say them. So I listened in horror as she spoke words that I had made her speak, and I saw that they made no sense. This was incredibly weird and hard to describe. I asked her if she was scripted, and that part deviated back to normal for a second. However, it always went back to the set path. Parts of the conversation that I remembered I hadn't heard in the morning or didn't make sense to me, did make sense to me in the afternoon. For example, I had been given context for it during the day. I thought I was dreaming multiple times, so I did the typical tests people suggest, like checking the time, but nothing happened and I didn't snap out of it. I've always had these kind of thought slippage problems, like accidental telepathic communication or other people saying what I'm thinking, but it had never been this long or sustained. I had a really strong sensation the entire time of dread that I remembered feeling before, but I've never been able to pin down for so long. I remembered while she was saying something that I'd sent someone a Discord message, "Ew," in response to her saying that this morning, and the message was there. This entire place feels really bizarre, and I'm not sure what's going on. I was hearing some things that I could predict that were songs and ritual-like, and after that was happening for a while, it turned evil, and the lights were saying, "Trick, trick, trick," over and over again at me, and I knew I'd been tricked into not believing these things even though they'd happened before. There was also some other things mocking me, like these girls that were able to tell what I was thinking. I'm completely aware of how crazy this sounds. All of this stuff has happened before and has been happening for a while, but for shorter periods of time. I didn't take anything, and I know that I was perfectly lucid and was able to question what was happening the entire time. Has anyone experienced something like this? It's really freaking me out, and I feel like it's the culmination of things that have been going on for a while, considering I've been a lot more lucid about the weird things that have been happening lately, that may have precipitated retaliation. Edit. I see that most people don't believe me. Makes me sad. Still, if anyone has ever experienced anything like this, please let me know. I would hate to be going crazy. There's a sensation that goes along with it too, of something really terrible happening, and everyone around me being in a bad mood or stressed out. It's really scary. Case notes. I do think there could be psychiatric explanations for what's going on with you. All I can really say is that there have been other reports in the past from other people being stuck in a time loop. So, if it's just crazy déjà vu, it is possible. It's happened before to other people. So, you may just be perfectly sane, but your brain is picking up on more than it should be, and that's making you think you're going crazy. Your brain is picking up on ghosts, echoes from the future. Case file number 324, written by Autistic Tree. I really felt the elevator going up. How? I'll try to be as precise as possible. Hear me out. Yesterday night, I was asked by a friend to join him in his student apartment. I didn't know the layout of the building, so I had him explain to me the way to follow while I sent him pictures of all my turns and doors and stairs to confirm that I was going on the right path. My friend told me to get to this one elevator to the 4th floor, room number X. I sent him the picture of me hitting the 4th floor button, and I am very sure that the elevator went up, since I got this one feeling that everybody gets in elevators. You can't get it wrong. You feel the elevator pushing up and you along with it. I exit the elevator. I turn around and send a picture of the level 4 indicator next to the elevator. Then I send a picture of what's on my left, asking him, "Left?" And as soon as I send him the picture, I notice that I am on level 0, and that on my right there's just grass outside. I had to retake the elevator again, and this time got to where I had to go. I really felt the elevator going up. How? Case file number 325, written by Big Stonks. Cats are enigmatically powerful. This is just a small demonstration of their power. I just experienced my first true glitch, and I don't know what to think or how to process this. I just washed my hands in the kitchen and looked at the patio door, and my cat was sitting outside looking at me, waiting for me to come in. Normal, because he's been outside all evening roaming in the neighborhood. I decided to go downstairs and feed my other 2 cats because they were harassing me and being really annoying. My cat that was just outside seconds ago is now sitting downstairs with the other 2 cats waiting for his food. I have absolutely zero explanation, and I'm honestly freaked out a lot. It is impossible for him to get inside without my intervention. There is nobody else here, and my wife is currently sleeping upstairs, and I did not hear the patio door open, nor did I let him in. I checked my house for intruders, and nobody is here. I have never experienced anything like this in my life. Clarification. My cat is a bobbed-tailed tabby, and there are no other cats in my neighborhood that look like him. It's a fenced-in yard, and I've never seen another cat in my yard. Also, the door is a heavy glass door that was fully shut because I checked, and there were no open windows in my house. Truly just bizarre. Bonus file. Written by 9-Fingered Bandit 96. When your mom and aunt tell you to be quiet, you better be quiet. Many people told me to post more stories about my encounters down in Mexico. This happened when I was 13. We went down to Mexico one year in the summer. We were staying with my aunt this time. Her house was pretty isolated, but not in the middle of nowhere. Her closest neighbor was probably a quarter of a mile away. Her house was relatively small. It was a brick house with an aluminum roof. The roof part is important. It had 2 rooms and 1 bathroom. The kids stayed in my aunt's room because it was the largest. My mom in the other bedroom, and my aunt slept alone in the living room. Her husband worked nights, so he was never there at night. I used to like going over there. We used to walk to town, which was about an hour away. I used to enjoy the walks. In town, there was always some neat stuff to look at, mostly fresh fish and fruits. Everything was pretty normal, except for one woman. I noticed her almost immediately. She was watching me and my family everywhere we went. This woman was pretty ordinary looking. She was middle-aged, but as I remember, as cliché as it sounds, she had a big pointy nose. The thing was, she watched us and followed us, but she never blinked, ever. When I would see her, at least. I told my mom and aunt, and they joked around saying, maybe she thought I was handsome. I shrugged it off. When it was time to go, it was sundown. I remember looking back one more time and seeing the woman peeking around the corner, watching us. That's the last that I saw of her. We made it back after dark, but just in time. We ate and talked. I still felt uneasy about the woman watching me, and asked my aunt about the woman. She sighed and told me many people think that woman is a witch. I remember feeling chills. She said never go outside after dark, no matter what. When it was time to sleep, I just had an uneasy feeling and kept thinking about that woman. I eventually fell asleep, but woke up because it was so hot. I remember hearing nothing outside. I hear small whispers coming from the living room. It sounded like my mom and aunt. I went to look, and both of them were awake, but frozen with their finger on their mouth in the shush motion. I thought it was strange, but I stayed quiet. That's when I heard something heavy land on the roof. It made a boom sound. Whatever it was heavy. Then you can hear something walking. This thing had claws because you can hear the claws tapping and dragging. I looked over to my mom and aunt, and both of them were praying, and I just stayed still, not knowing what to do. The thing on the roof let out a screech. It sounded like an owl screeching, but almost like a human was imitating it. I felt the hairs all over my body stand up. It walked around on the roof for a bit before it stopped. All the normal sounds from outside started up again. Bugs and birds were audible. Don't know if animals have some kind of respect or fear of these things. I asked my aunt and mom, what was that? They told me it was probably a Yakuza. They explained if I hear something outside, never to let it lure me. That's when I remembered the baby crying at my uncle's farm years earlier. That stuck with me for a while. Case file number 326, written by Drin21. When you're asked where your son is, but you don't have children. This story happened last year. That afternoon, I was at the airport and ordered a taxi online to take me home. The taxi driver called me, and because the airport was so noisy, I walked to a quiet place so I could hear his voice as well. He picked me up in a car that had 3 rows of seats. I put my suitcase in the second row and sat beside the suitcase. We chatted the whole drive. In the middle of the chat, he suddenly asked if my son was asleep because his voice was no longer heard. I thought I heard it wrong, so I didn't answer, and we talked about other things. When we arrived, I opened the door and got off with my suitcase and said goodbye to him. He asked me, "Where's your child?" I said I have no children, and his face went pale. He immediately got down and checked the back seat, and indeed, there was no child there. He panicked and said when he called me, he heard a child's voice chattering faintly. I was alone there. I walked far enough that the closest person was still very far from me. There were no children around when he called. Before I got into the car, he saw a small boy getting into the car as well. But when I was inside, he was confused because he didn't see the boy and thought maybe the boy was lying on his back in the 3rd row, so he couldn't see it from the front. Then when he asked me why the boy didn't speak anymore, because the first few minutes he sometimes still heard laughter, due to me not answering, he thought that the boy was asleep. I don't know if this taxi driver was playing a prank on me or not, but he looked really scared. It was top-notch acting if it was a prank. His hands were cold and shaking. Case notes. So the first question that pops into my mind is that you said that you don't have children, but does that mean that you never had children before? Or did you have a son and he passed along for some reason? I certainly hope not, but it would explain a few things if that was the case. But if you've never had children ever, then that is very strange. You know, makes me wonder, if we are in a simulation, as I really love to think, then you can think of life as a game. So maybe the taxi driver saw your future son if you choose to have parents, and if he chooses you. Just a thought. Case file number 327, written by Edelia. Looking at the sky with her boyfriend, and she sees the grid. I have to start this off by saying there were absolutely no drugs or alcohol or anything of that kind involved. We were sober as one can be. Okay, so this was about 2 years ago, not last summer, but the one before that. Me and my boyfriend, 24 and 25 at the time, went to visit his grandma in the countryside for a few days. One night, probably around 8 p.m., we went into the garden to relax and look at the fireflies that were starting to show up. The sun had set, but the sky was still a pale blue, not really dark yet. Grandma has a bed outside in the garden, used basically as a couch, so we decided to just lay there for a while. At one point, probably just a few minutes later, I noticed very clearly a pale, white, grid shape in the sky. Wondering what the hell I'm seeing, I start asking my boyfriend, "Do you see?" And he cuts me off. "The grid? Yeah." So it's not like one influenced the other. We both clearly saw it. We joked around that the sky is fake and we are in the Matrix, etc. We often have Matrixy experiences, so it wasn't really anything shocking. But this has honestly been the cherry on top of everything else. I don't remember thinking of taking a picture, or maybe we thought it wouldn't be visible enough and that it's pointless to even try. Not sure. But we kinda just accepted it and shrugged it off, had dinner and went to bed. 2 years later, and I've never seen it again, and I've tried. We mention it now and again like, "Hey, remember the grid?" Yeah, I haven't seen it either, etc. I love looking at the sky in general, clouds, shapes, colors, stars, whatever it may be, and yet I still never saw it again, not even a glimpse. I tried to find similar cases online, but for some reason, I only found people on drugs like psychedelics seeing grids and honeycomb shapes in the sky. But as I said before, we were very much so sober. Every time I remember it, I really don't know what to even think or how to feel. Why haven't I been able to see it again? What could it be? I've been theorizing it's a force field, or maybe a projection of sorts, and the sky isn't really real. I don't know, but I hope someone sober has seen it as well, and can maybe shed some light. Case file number 328, written by Goof Off Corpse. When your name is proof of a glitch. My whole life I have suffered glitches, most of which revolve around a feeling that I'm being watched. The best description is like a real-life Truman Show. I know I'm not being watched, but sometimes the things that happen are difficult to ignore. A few weeks ago, my girlfriend accidentally washed my vape pen. The pen was a Yukon Evolve Plus. I got it at a smoke shop near me about 3 years ago. It is used to vaporize marijuana concentrates. I use it when I'm traveling. It's self-contained and very portable. I had made plans to visit my daughter and grandchildren a few hours away from me, so I decided to stop by the same store and see if I could get a new one. On my way to my daughter's, my girlfriend and I stopped at the smoke shop. I walked in and asked the lady if they had the pen. She said they did not and don't carry that type of device anymore, and really acted like she didn't know what I was talking about. I asked if they had anything that would be comparable, and she took me to a glass case in the corner of the shop. Things were kind of piled on top of each other there. As the lady was moving stuff around, I noticed 2 boxes that said Yukon on the side. I asked to see them, and she said, "Oh, I didn't know we had those." There was a kind of pinkish one and a black one. I said I wanted the black one, and she tried to talk me out of buying it. She said the other one was more silver than pink, and she thought it looked nicer. I reiterated that I wanted the black one. She rang it up and I left. We started heading towards my daughter's. My girlfriend was driving and I got the device out to charge it. That was when the sun hit the top of the box and I saw that my name was pressed into the top. Someone had signed my name on a piece of paper on top of the box and the indentation was still there. I'm looking at it now and it clearly is my first and last name. I have absolutely no explanation for how my name happened to be on the box. There is no reason for it to be there, and it is very concerning. Bonus file, written by Anagram85. A full-scale bed, moved on its own. This happened years ago, in about 1997 when I was 12 or 13, and I still haven't come up with a good explanation for it. My mom and I had decided to repaint my bedroom. So this particular day, we started by moving all of the furniture into the center of my bedroom, apart from my bed, which we moved in pieces onto the landing outside my bedroom. The bed was a single divan, so there was a fairly sturdy base, with drawers in it, so heavy too. And then there was a headboard, a mattress, and a bedding. At the time, we lived in a big Victorian house. I'm in England, and my bedroom was down a long corridor, with the other 3 bedrooms on the opposite side of the house. For context, I never really liked that house and had a bad feeling about it right from when we moved in, when I was 4. And other people said the same thing over the years too. There were a few other odd occurrences, but this one was the weirdest by far. That day, we closed my bedroom door and set to painting my walls. This took all afternoon, though we had a break, so we were in and out of my bedroom a couple of times. Once we'd finished painting, my mom had an appointment for the plumber to come around to diagnose a problem with the boiler. He wasn't there long, maybe 10 minutes at most. And then we had dinner. It was early evening when my mom said we could probably put all the furniture back into my room and get it ready for me to sleep in that night. However, we moved all the furniture from the middle of my room back into place, then went to get my bed and it was just gone. We couldn't work out where it was, and probably stood in the corridor outside my bedroom for 5 minutes discussing whether we were losing our minds. Then we set off looking for it, checking the other rooms, and eventually I found it, in my mom's bedroom, on top of my mom's bed. It was set out exactly as it should be, with the divan base the right way up, the mattress on top, the headboard in the right place, etc. It was ready to be slept on, except it was on top of my mom's bed, in her bedroom. I can still remember the feeling I had pushing open my mom's bedroom door and seeing it, and just knowing something really freaking weird had happened. I was really scared, and so was my mom, though initially she tried to hide it, saying things like, "There has to be an explanation," etc. However, we talked it around endlessly and have done 100 times since then, and we've never come up with an explanation that makes sense. My mom even called the plumber that night to ask if he'd moved it, and he was very perplexed and said no, because why would he have done it? And more importantly, how could he have done it when he was only there for 10 minutes and was checking on something in the boiler the whole time? I should also add that my sister, age 10, was in the house at the time of this incident, but was watching films and playing downstairs. She also freaked out and started crying, which earned me a ban on ever talking about it in front of her. The layout of the house meant the bed had to have been moved along the corridor from my room, and then moved around 3 corners to get it into my mom's bedroom, before being lifted up onto her bed. It was a 2-person job for us to move it back, and because the base was bulky, I think even someone really strong would have struggled to move it alone. So I feel certain the plumber couldn't have done it, and neither could my little sister. One thing I've always wondered is at what point the bed moved. We were in and out of my bedroom all day, but we only noticed it wasn't where it should have been when we went to put it back into place. I have no idea what happened, but when I think about it now, it still freaks me out. Case file number 329, written by Quest Prod, Cars from Out of This World. I'd like to start by saying I was never one to believe in the Matrix or anything of the sort until this experience. I'm trying to come to some sort of explanation aside from a glitch, but I have not been able to find any resolution to this. It's not scary, spooky, or some time traveler thrown through space-time to our dimension or timeline. It's just odd. I was driving through the streets near my house at around 9:30 p.m., so it was dark and oddly quiet for a weekend night. I live in a college town in Southern California with a vibrant nightlife, so not seeing a single car or pedestrian for the first 3 miles on a major road was extremely unusual. I didn't think much of it until I came down a large hill and around the bend at the bottom. It was a sweeping left bend with a speed limit of 45 miles per hour. I saw tail lights ahead, right at the end of the bend. I noticed I was getting closer fast and checked my speed, 45 miles per hour. I slowed down quickly and approached the cars ahead of me. I slowed down from 45 to 10 miles per hour. The cars were stopped. No stoplight, stop sign, accident, hazard, animal. There was nothing there. No reason to stop. I realized they were all stopped in perfectly spaced out intervals, alternating between the left and right lane. I felt an odd sensation through my body, like a static vibration. What I would compare it to is TV static emanating from my bones the closer I crept up to the cars. All the cars were vehicles that did not come with a manual option, so they were all automatic transmission vehicles. None of the cars had brake lights on, stopped without engaging brakes. The sounds of the cars were non-existent. As I pulled up next to the car in the left lane, I crept up to look at the person in the car, and as soon as I broke that perfectly spaced out interval, all the cars began moving at once. No engine starting, no gears being changed, no handbrakes being disengaged, just a sudden movement by all 7 cars. There was no slinky effect, like traffic always has. All 7 cars, front to rear, began moving at the exact same time. That static feeling I had wore off the further I got from where the cars had stopped. I passed the cars once I had a chance, and all the drivers were expressionless, did not look over at me, did not show any sign of acknowledgement of me or what just happened. Is this anything any of you could give insight to or know of happening? Thanks. Case notes. Okay, so I wonder if everyone else is gonna get this vibe too, but for me I'm just getting the vibe of aliens, woohoo, we're back to that. So really, this isn't an abduction or time loss or anything like that. It's just a bunch of cars with passengers that don't even seem like they're human. They're almost robotic. If I was an alien and I wanted to study people, I would program androids that looked exactly like humans and then send them down to collect data, live among us. Maybe that's what this is. Maybe those cars were created by aliens in that spot, and the androids were just loaded into it and sent off like programs scattering across the country. just to see what's around. There's only so much you can learn in a spaceship, right? Even with the advanced technology, you want to get down on the ground. But you can't do that if you're a freaky looking alien. Case file number 330, written by Prometheus Titan God. I think me and my friend crossed over into another universe. This happened about 25 years ago. We regularly went to a festival in the mountains of Pennsylvania every year. I went with my friend, Tom. We camped out and had a small bonfire, etc. We enjoyed our favorite music from our favorite bands, and we had a great time. We have been doing this for almost 10 years at this time. So we were experts in preparing for a 5 to 6 hour drive, setting up the campsite, doing the breaking down and leaving, etc. We stayed up late every night playing music and doing our nightly ritual of burning all paper trash and anything trash-wise that was non-toxic in the campfire, so that there was less trash to clean up when we left. We jokingly called it combustibles, and would yell or chant as we would throw some on. Yeah, I know, we were young and dumb. This is important for later. At one point, one of us put a buck of something on the fire and it stunk. It burned an off color and put off a lot of smoke. So much for being not toxic, I thought. Well, we both got a lung full and coughed, but we're fine. We didn't realize the time. It was almost 3, so I thought I was going to sleep. We planned to leave for home at like 5 a.m. to beat the traffic leaving. It was a very popular festival and was packed. So I said, why not pack everything up now and we can sleep in the car for an hour or so, and then we can go. We packed up quickly, then since I was driving, I said let's leave now to get to a rest stop on the parkway, then sleep in the car if we are tired, avoiding traffic totally. For Tom, it was a no-brainer. He wasn't driving. He could just sleep on the way back till it was his turn to switch. We got like 30 to 45 minutes on the parkway, when I started to doze off at the wheel, swerving, almost killing us several times while Tom passed out, sleeping in the passenger seat. So I woke him and said, we need to switch or something. We came to a rest stop, decided to park, get cool drinks, and sleep in the car for a while. This is when it happens. Tom goes inside to get drinks and piss or something. The next thing I know, I'm driving in 5-lane traffic an hour and a half away from home. I didn't wake up as if I was just waking up from a dream. I was just in one moment, one frame, and then into another. My eyes were wide open, dry, like they weren't even blinking. I didn't know where we were at first or what the fuck happened. I looked over at Tom. His eyes were wide open. I mean like wide open, staring straight ahead. I yelled at what happened, where we were. I got no response. I yelled at him again. He then slowly looked over at me to say, what? In a slow way. He said, why are you waking me up? I said, you weren't sleeping. It took us the rest of the drive home to grasp what happened. We traveled a 4-hour span of roads in less than 2 hours. We at the time had no memory of leaving the rest stop. I only faintly remember him coming back to the car, and he only vaguely recalls coming back to the car. So it wasn't because I was sleeping. He was awake in the rest stop and he couldn't remember either. Several other things were off, besides the CD player being on and had played through all the songs and was stopped, meaning a CD was put in and was played, ran through the album, and reached the end. We have no memory of that as well. Another thing, we should have needed to stop for gas before that point, because when I left, I was low. We apparently either put gas in or traveled that entire way without using hardly any gas, and my brakes before were fine now. They were grinding like metal on metal. We talked about it for years after. He is a hardcore skeptic of anything beyond his religion. He concluded we must have inhaled too much toxic smoke at the campsite, and I went into autopilot driving while he slept. But kept telling him he wasn't sleeping. He was in a trance, staring straight ahead with a frozen look on his face. I don't think it was aliens, because it was a bright, sunny, clear day with lots of people around. A few years ago, we talked about it more. He admitted to the fact he wasn't sleeping. He was staring straight ahead when he came around. We started to remember more. I started to remember him getting back to the car and me insisting I was okay to drive because I had a cold drink. So we drove out of the rest stop. After that, it was fuzzy. Then for him, that is all he will admit to remembering. But for myself, I started to remember something that gives me goosebumps as I write this still. I remember nodding off, then being awakened by the sound of branches hitting the car. then the feeling of falling in the car, then a hard splash. Then I saw in a bloody haze, water, seeing my friend convulsing from lack of air while waking up from being unconscious. Now I need to say that at the time of this, I had no clue about quantum immortality, glitches in the Matrix, or Mandela effects. It was the late 90s of my remembering, and the early middle 90s when it actually occurred. I wanted to believe it was a false memory, so a few years back I went on Google Earth, something that I didn't have back then. And when I traced the route after the rest stop, there is a huge bridge that crosses over a major river. And yes, if you look, it's possible if someone drove off the road going fast enough, you would hit small trees and then a big drop into the water. Seeing this freaked me out bad. I sat back and said, gosh, I think we died. Then, a few years back, I learned about glitches and quantum immortality after having some major experiences. Then it all made sense to me. We switched realities. It explains everything. Why my brakes were suddenly fixed. Why little things were off. And the other thing, many of my close friends changed personalities. I wouldn't go into details, but it seemed like after that ride home, the world was different. Close friends weren't close anymore. I'm a huge MacGyver fan and have never missed an episode. I was watching it online and saw 2 episodes that never existed before for me. Sure, I could have missed them, but I don't think so. But I actually recorded them on VHS back then, collecting the episodes so I knew each one. But this Prometheus syndrome, I don't know. Truly freaked me out. Big on mythology and my fellow titans, especially Prometheus. So an episode where Mac actually talks about Prometheus. Yeah, I would have remembered that. The truly disturbing thing was the empty deal look in my friend's face and eyes after he convulsed underwater. It was the same look I saw when I asked what happened, where are we, when we woke up in this reality. I don't know what happened for sure, but it disturbs us both. Bonus file, written by Mr. Nice Guy 35. This rocking chair must have pissed off a ghost. To provide some quick background, our house has always had weird vibes to it. My boys have both claimed to have experienced things, and my wife and I have seen things as well. Last night, I put down our youngest, a little rocking chair. Mine, from when I was a toddler, was seated against his wall. I was sitting on the floor in front of it. The room was dark except for a nightlight. After he was sleeping, I left the room, shut the door, and walked downstairs to the kitchen. About a minute or 2 later, definitely less than 5 minutes, I heard a bang from above me where his room was located. My wife, who was upstairs at the time, texted me asking what that was. I said I had no idea. Our son ran out of the room and found my wife, terrified. The small rocking chair was in the middle of the floor, upside down. It had moved, somehow, about 5 feet, and flipped forward. I know he was sleeping as I'd checked before I left the room, and the movement and sound happened within a 5-minute span. My wife was on the same floor of the house, and would have told me if she was involved somehow, or if his brother had somehow entered the room. His brother was sleeping at the same time as well. We eventually calmed him down and got him back to sleep. It was crazy, to say the least. Case file number 331, written by Junkie97. A watch tells time, but can it move through it as well? This might not be super crazy, but it has been bothering me a lot because I just can't explain it. I've had 2 major watches throughout my life that I've worn. The first one I got when I was 10, and it had a plain black and white face with square metal black and white links for a strap. The second watch I bought for myself for my 18th birthday, and it is just plain black with a solid black plastic strap. This weekend, I got a Facebook memory of a party I attended when I was 17, and in the pictures, I'm wearing the watch that I bought when I was 18. I've never worn anyone else's watch because I have really thin wrists and they never fit. I'm incredibly sure of the fact that I am 17 in the picture because of when it was posted, but also I'm standing next to a guy that I had been dating at that age. The watch also looks exactly like my current watch. I just can't explain it. Case file number 332, written by Dance of the Plants. Disappearing object phenomena, only this time it's a bird. A sparrow flew into my screen porch today. Birds often find their way in a few times a year. There are 2 ways, through a hole in the northeast corner or through the open cat hole in the southwest corner. I opened our screen door and began the annoying job of trying to save a poor bird who was terrified of me. I noticed right away that it was panicked and worn out. A feather was sticking out of place on its head and it was panting with its beak open. It escaped me repeatedly by slamming into the screen walls over and over and began falling to the ground. I kept trying to shoo it out the wide open door to no avail. Finally, I got a black shirt and figured I'd throw it on the bird and get it out the door that way. By this point, the bird is now only just hopping around the porch, under furniture, into cobwebs. It sees me and just runs the other way. I feel stupid because I'm only trying to help it and don't want one of our cats to get it, and it keeps getting away because I'm trying to be slow and gentle. Finally, the bird is taking a break right in front of me, in the dead square middle of the porch. We are nowhere near either hole in the screen, and to get to the open door, the bird would have to fly or hop to my right. Here's the moment of truth. It's scared, about to hop away. There is nothing within the 3-foot parameter of the bird except me. I say, you know what, fuck it. And I beam the heavy shirt at the little guy, and I watched the lump of where the bird was under the shirt just go flat, like a magician's trick. I pick up the shirt and I'm confused because I know for a fact that I got the bird under it, but I also knew that there was no bird there. I didn't hear its claws hopping on the carpet, no wings flapping, and it didn't escape because I just threw the shirt on it. I would have seen it or heard it. It was just automatically silent on the porch after I threw the shirt, and it was so bizarre that I saw the lump just fall flat. I searched the porch and the shirt over 10 times. I flipped furniture, checked outside of the porch, searched everywhere. No bird. Freakiest moment of my life, and only I will ever know for real that it actually effing happened. Case notes. We all experience disappearing objects, but this is a bird. And the weird thing is it only happened when the bird was obscured by visible light. I wonder if that has anything to do with the quantum realm. The waveform only collapses when matter is being observed, although what scientists mean when they say observed is just interacted with, by anything. Objects do often disappear when no one's watching. Very rarely do they ever go missing in plain sight, at least not when being directly observed. So maybe our observation, consciously, plays a bigger role than we know. Case file number 333, written by Get M. Rue. Do you want to hear something scary? Imagine a bathroom that swallows people. Today I went to a big medical center that I have to get specialty care with. It takes me about 3 hours to drive there, so I always use the restroom after I arrive. Because of the virus that must not be named, the most direct route to the restroom is blocked off. People have to basically walk 3 sides of a square to get there. But it's big, clean, and nice, so it's worth it. As I rounded the final side of the square to the restroom, another woman said something to me, and I got held up in conversation. I watched a woman, who had been walking in front of me, walk into the alcove to the ladies' restroom. I watched her double-check the sign, then walk into the restroom. I hoped it wouldn't be too crowded. I'm a human hermit crab. I extricate myself from the stranger, walked to the restroom, and walked into an absolutely empty room. 3 stalls, no people. Nothing. I opened the back door up and double-check. Nope, nowhere else to go. This woman straight disappeared. I then had the most anxious pee of my life, washed my hands, and beat feet out of the weird bathroom that somehow swallows people. Bonus file, written by Responsible Insect 19, a ghost that looks just like her. Okay, so I'm new to Reddit and only got an account to follow a podcast I like, but I thought I'd share this on here. I've already tried looking it up and honestly I'm not getting anything. So first, I have to explain the story as best as I can. Basically, my family and I moved into this house a while ago, maybe like 8 years or so. But ever since we moved out, my family swears they keep seeing things around the house. I've actually moved out with my boyfriend not that long ago, but I still visit very often. Very specifically, my family thinks they see a ghost around the house that looks exactly like me, and it's freaking me out. And I know it's not me that they're seeing, because the times when they see this ghost don't make sense, and sometimes I'm not even home. It's happened a couple times, but I'll just write down a few examples. The first time it happened, I was playing on the computer in my parents' room, when I noticed my mom walk down the hallway to my room. She called out my name and I asked her what's up. She came out really confused, because according to her, she had followed me all the way from the kitchen into my closet in my room. When she got to the closet, there was no one there. I had been on the computer the whole time. I was even on it when I saw her pass her room to go into my own. When she told me this, it really freaked me out, and I just told her I didn't want to keep talking about it. I get scared super easily. The second time, I was helping my mom out with groceries. She was in the garage bringing bags in, and I was in the kitchen putting everything up. While I was putting something up, she came in all mad, saying that she was struggling to get some bags and I was just standing beside her watching her struggle. But that wasn't me. Apparently I was watching her struggling to pick up some bags from the truck floor, and when she turned around to ask me for help, I just stared down at her. Again, that really scared me. Another time, my dad was telling me about something that happened when he was taking care of my sisters while my mom and I were out. Now, my dad does not believe in any kind of ghosts or supernatural things, but apparently while taking care of my sisters, my dad heard what sounded like someone trying to open the sliding door that leads to the backyard. He immediately got up and went to check on the door to make sure no one wanted to break in or something. But when he got there, the door was shaking by itself very violently. It looked like someone was trying really hard to open the door, and had the lock stick been on the other side to keep it closed, the door would have slid open. It stopped for a few seconds when my dad got there. Even my dad got scared, and I've never seen him this freaked out before. My two little sisters also heard the door. Now, I had personally never had a supernatural experience in the house, but a few weeks before I moved out, I was home alone. I was taking a shower and heard a huge bang. It sounded like the front door had been swung open, and then after that, it started sounding like someone was opening and closing doors and cabinets. I was so scared because it sounded like someone had broken into the house. I was defenseless and in the freaking shower, so I got out of the shower, grabbed my phone, and called my mom crying. All the while, doors and cabinets were still opening and closing. My dad got onto the cameras they have in the house, and they didn't see anyone. There was no one in the house, and nothing was being moved around. It stopped as soon as my dad said that through the phone. Those are some of the examples of what's going on. It terrifies me to think that one day I could possibly be staring right at someone who looks exactly like me in the middle of the night. I've never seen her, and I don't want to. What could it mean that the ghost looks exactly like me? Case file number 334, written by Kook Love. Faces in clouds. But these ones are otherworldly. This was a few years back, but I still remember it like it was yesterday. I was in the back of the car and my whole family was in it as well. We parked the car outside a bakery so that my parents could go inside and get some bread. I was looking outside the window towards the sky because I was really bored and I noticed some weird shapes that were positioned right on top of the part of the city we were in. Now I know clouds can take all sorts of forms and that it's completely normal. However, there were two faces up in the sky and they were made of clouds but super detailed, down to the very last hair on their head. One of them looked like what I suppose Zeus is portrayed like in every movie ever. Beard, longish hair, bushy eyebrows. The other one was of an old woman. Her hair was in a bun and her face was wrinkly. Like I said, the amount of detail in their faces was otherworldly. So far, you could say all of it could just be clouds formed randomly in the sky, and that's what I would have thought too, if their eyes weren't completely black. Their eyes were just a deep black, and it seemed like they were both looking down towards the city. Kind of like they were looking down at humans. I looked at them for a few minutes in awe, and then I turned to my left to tell my sister, but as soon as I looked back, they were gone. I remember I was not afraid of them, just curious of what they could be. Has anyone ever experienced something similar, or could have an explanation for it? I've always wondered what they might be.